Single dad pulled a crying bride from the fire, not knowing he was her last hope. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. The flowers were perfect. The music, soft and dreamy. The guests, glowing with joy. But none of it mattered when the fire started. No one knew how it began, just that flames erupted near the back of the reception hall, turning laughter into screams in seconds. Amid the chaos, a young bride in a white lace gown stood frozen, tears streaking down her cheeks, clutching her chest as smoke swallowed the room. Jake Turner, a 38-year-old single father and off-duty volunteer firefighter, had only stopped by the venue to drop off a toolbox for a friend. He hadn't planned on staying, hadn't planned on running toward flames in a button-up shirt and jeans. But when he saw the panic, the people pouring out, and then her, that lone figure paralyzed in the corner with fear, he didn't think. He moved. "Hey! Hey, look at me!" Jake shouted as he ducked back into the hall, coughing through the smoke. The bride looked at him, disoriented and trembling. Her veil was partly singed, her mascara running, her lips murmuring something he couldn't hear. She couldn't move. She wouldn't. Without hesitation, Jake threw off his jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders, and lifted her into his arms. "You're gonna be okay," he said, though his lungs burned and the fire roared louder. "I've got you." He carried her through the thick smoke, out the collapsing doorway, just moments before the roof gave way behind them. The crowd gasped as he emerged, bride in arms, covered in ash and soot like a hero pulled from a war zone. But this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The bride's name was Emily Walker. 29, a nurse, and until that moment, deeply in love. Her wedding was meant to be a fresh start after years of heartbreak, but that day turned into tragedy when her fiancé, Matt, had left just before the ceremony, his cold feet hidden behind a scribbled note and a vanished phone. The fire? An accident sparked by faulty wiring. But the real blaze was the one inside Emily, a heart scorched by betrayal. For days after, Jake couldn't shake the image of her sobbing in his arms. She wasn't just afraid of the fire. She was breaking from something deeper. Something invisible. A few weeks later, a handwritten note arrived at Jake's house. "Dear stranger, I didn't get your name that day. I wasn't ready to speak. But you saved me, not just from the fire, but from falling apart. I've thought about giving up more times than I can admit. That day, I lost the man I thought would love me forever. But you reminded me that there are still good people in this world. If you ever want to talk over coffee, I owe you one. Sincerely, Emily Walker." Jake hesitated. He hadn't dated in years. Raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, had taken everything he had left after his wife's passing. But something about Emily's words stayed with him. So he wrote back. Their first coffee turned into a walk. Their second into laughter. The third, into silence so comfortable it didn't need words. Emily met Lily. Lily adored her. And slowly, 3 broken hearts began to heal. One night, months later, as they sat watching old home videos, Emily turned to Jake and whispered, "That day, I thought I had nothing left. But you were exactly who I needed. And you didn't even know it." Jake smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Sometimes we're put in the right place at the right time, for someone else's miracle. They never rushed things. Healing isn't fast. But kindness, consistency, and quiet love began to rebuild what fire and abandonment had tried to destroy. 2 years later, under the same arch where her first wedding had crumbled, Emily stood again in white. This time, her veil glowed with morning sunlight. This time, Lily held her hand, grinning ear to ear. And this time, Jake waited at the end of the aisle, not as a stranger, but as the man who had walked through the fire with her, and then stayed. In his vows, Jake said, "I didn't know who you were when I pulled you out. But I know now, you were the missing piece of a story I didn't even know I was writing." Emily's voice trembled as she responded, "You saved me before you knew me. Now I get to love you for the rest of our lives." And somewhere in the crowd, people wept, not from sadness, but from the reminder that even in moments of destruction, love can still rise from the ashes. Because sometimes, the person who pulls you from the fire, is the one who stays to rebuild your home.